Hey guys, Randy Andy here. Today I want to talk to you about future technology, simply because it's just advancing at such a fast rate. And granted, it is in a bit of a decline right now, but it's still fast. It's still going super fast with the advancement of technology. And I'm going to be talking from a videography standpoint mostly, because that's one of my fields of interest, one of my major fields of interest. I'm also going to be talking from more of just a general tech perspective too. But it's just, guys, the future is bright if you're a techie like me and you enjoy cameras like me. I mean, just think about it. We've gone from the Nintendo Virtual Boy, released in 1995, the first VR experience known to break necks and basically not give you much of a 3D feel at all, and give people just not even just motion sickness, but just eyesores and everything under the sun, to now fast forward from 1995 to 2018, we have things like the HTC Vive, which is just an amazing experience, which I haven't tried, but I've watched people use it playing games like Elite Dangerous, and holy crap, I am jealous of that because it just looks so immersive. Like, sometimes people will like hyperspace way too close to a star and like fall out of their chairs in a weird way. I want to fall out of my chair from that experience, you know what I'm saying? Like, just that alone, in this short amount of time, we've gone from that Nintendo Virtual Boy awful experience to where we are now. It's just insane. Before I go in depth about virtual reality and mixed reality and all of that, I want to first talk about the phone being the killer of the DSLR in the future. Now, it might sound a bit cringy if you really are a photographer or a videographer, but just hear me out, okay? So we know already that phones have faster processing than cameras. You know, cameras have a computer in them technically, but the computer that's within a phone, since smartphones today are basically just small computers, it's way faster than anything in any camera. So already processing power is better. So that just makes for a faster and better experience and more possibilities for the UI and everything, alright? Then we know that phone cameras are getting better and better. Some even shoot in 4K. Maybe not necessarily true native 4K, but they can look decent at 4K, and that's already a pretty good step in the right direction. Now, the one area where phones fall short at the moment is optical zoom, because right now we have just terrible digital zoom that basically turns what could have been a nice picture with the phone into grainy hell. You know, that's what we get, alright? But imagine for a second that we could get rid of that grain issue. Imagine we could fit any lens we want to onto a phone. Well, meet the Red Hydrogen, which will be coming out sometime soon. It's basically going to be a phone made by the camera company Red. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. If you haven't, you're doing something wrong. They're making a phone that not only has a good camera in it for a phone already, but it's going to have an interchangeable lens mount, alright? Which in theory means any DSLR lens will be able to be put onto that phone. Now, maybe some won't, but this is an in theory thing. That's what they say about it. Okay, so we fixed the optical zoom issue now. Now we can put high quality lenses onto a phone. Now imagine for a second if people started building rigs for this, so something to keep the lens kind of stable while it's on this tiny phone, basically, or tiny in comparison to a lens. Now imagine then that this rig also has a flip out monitor that connects straight into a phone, and almost, maybe if you're rich enough, a little gimbal thing all built in there, and then a place to plug in your XLRs that also goes into the phone, and all this extra stuff, and then a place to put a light on, and then you just slot your phone in, like I guess the sensor part and the computer part that's gonna make the lens and the XLRs and everything work together to make a DSLR killer. Which honestly, that day, I want that day to come. I want that day to come, because just imagine you have this really cool rig thing that you like, you know, it's just a really cool rig, and then you just slot your phone in and boom, you're ready to bloody go. That would be so awesome compared to lugging around like a camera body, making sure you like everything's clean, everything. And apparently with the Red Hydrogen, you'll be able to change the sensor in there. Obviously, for big budget films like a Christopher Nolan stuff and whatever, obviously that's not going to kill the cameras that are used there, like the big IMAX cameras and everything like that. But for independent films, you know, for people who would otherwise use a DSLR or say something like a C100, it could be the next step in things. And I'm very, very excited for that. I would much rather have that than like a DSLR or something, because that just sounds amazing to me, and it's very within the realm of possibility. Red is basically doing that already. It's not necessarily at the stage that I'm talking about. And after all, phones have more computing power than DSLRs or the C100 or any camera basically. So imagine just the cool tech features, the cool UI features, all the new stuff that could be integrated with this that you wouldn't get with a DSLR, that you wouldn't get with a C100. But what job opportunities could something like the DSLR killing phone do for me? Or do for people like me? Let's just say 18 to 30 something. You know, we'll be on the cusp of that technology, which means we'll be eager to learn it the best and we'll be eager to get it first. While it'll be super fun to film with that stuff, we could also be hired as specialists to use that new stuff for other people, because we might be the only people who know how to use this DSLR killing phone rig. Because it'd be quite niche when it first comes out. Like, people would be like, nah, I'm just gonna keep using my, you know, my DSLR or whatever. But then when companies want this thing to start getting used because it's more efficient, it means it can cut their costs. That's where the job opportunities lie. In the future, it will pay just to understand this new tech, in my opinion. We could also be consulted on what new phone to get, like how bulky it should be, how light it should be, which phone has a better sensor, which phone allows for more lenses to be attached, which phone allows which brands to be attached to what. All that stuff is things that people pay for. Specialists to be able to tell you, okay, get that, get that, get that, get that. Alright, now that I've talked about phones potentially killing DSLRs in the future, let me go on to virtual reality. Now, it might seem like a weird one, but whether we like it or not, tech is just overlapping with videography and content creation in pretty much every way possible, to the point where even if you don't care about games, virtual reality is something you're gonna have to cross paths with in the future. I've already talked about the leaps virtual reality has taken, but let's start with games. Say you were to make a narrative virtual reality game. You would need to be able to hold the viewer's attention to certain areas in that game, because they have 360-degree vision. They can look anywhere they want, and you need to be able to, with that, you need to be able to still make them look where they need to look to understand the story, to understand the cues. And how are you going to do that? Effective cinematography and effective sound cues. Now, that might sound a bit weird, like how is that cinematography then? You can still choose how things are laid out, how focus might change, and make a way to make it not jarring. You can still figure that sort of stuff out, and that's what a cinematographer is for, is especially how to block the virtual area you're in, how certain things are placed so that you notice them more naturally, and also sound cues so that you look at certain places in the right time, which is ultimately still somewhat of a cinematographer's job to understand how that works, at least if you're freelance and you're going to specialize in more than just video and you want to understand them all together. We may be employed to help put in some essential attention grabbing techniques that have been used in film, but just to hyper escalate them to work in a 360-degree environment. I see this as quite likely because in the same vein, cinematographers do already work on not only animated movies, but games. Cinematographers work on games already, and it's not that different now. You technically have a 360-degree view with a game. It's just when it's virtual reality game, that 360-degree view becomes a lot more immersive and a lot more distracting, so you're gonna need to employ them a lot more. Like, you're gonna need cinematographers a lot more than before, because you're really gonna need to make sure that you look where you're supposed to look, even though you're in this amazing immersive experience. However, when it comes to films, that would probably stick to a 180-degree view or 360 view. But say it's a 180 to 360-degree view film that's being made, then us learning how to film for VR would create great new job opportunities, because that would be a very niche thing to understand how to film for VR and cost effectively too, at least relative to VR. That would be an amazing new job opportunity, is learning how to shoot for VR so that we can be employed for that, because it would be quite an edge case thing to understand, especially now when it's a very new thing. It's all about drawing people's eyes even when they can look in a 360-degree area anywhere. Now I want to touch on something a little less intense: mixed reality. Or at least mixed reality in the vein of cameras. Mixed reality is basically this rig that you get that will connect to your camera real time, where you can video something, and behind that person that you're videoing or thing that you're videoing, there can be a almost green screen background without a green screen, or with a green screen, but it'll transfer real time. So you won't have to chroma in post, you won't have to make this thing afterwards. You can know what you want, make it before, and see it real time while the scene is being filmed. Now, job opportunities for this is quite important because, number one, you need a rig to do this. As in, you need a specific type of rig for your camera. I'm not saying you need like a computer rig, although that is part of it. So that could be a very niche thing, is even having one of those could get you the job if they know you're good with cameras, or if you can prove you're good with cameras. But also that you know how to film with this in mind. You know how to make the most of that mixed reality filming, if that makes sense. You know how to make the environment look the best it does with the limited technology it is today, or even when that mixed reality technology has evolved later down the line. You know how to get the most out of it. You know how to use those angles that make it look the most real to trick the viewer the most. Being familiar with this stuff now, while it's very, very early on, and then just progressing yourself with it as it progresses, means job opportunities will just go through the roof if you just stay on your game of understanding it and being able to prove to multiple people that you understand it. Now, all I've talked about is phone cameras killing the DSLR eventually, with rigs and such and all that sort of stuff. I've talked about virtual reality, I've talked about mixed reality. Now, tech is advancing so much that I could have talked about way more than that when it comes to videography, when it comes to content creation in general. Tech is just moving insanely fast. You know, even just judging by those three I talked about alone, it's pretty insane that I can even say that some of that stuff exists, like the red hydrogen phone, being able to have interchangeable lenses, for example. There's so much more that could even be discussed, like how AI is learning to write poems and scripts and things like that. Granted, probably not the greatest poems. In fact, they're pretty crude, but they're getting better at it. And that, in one way, is kind of scary, but I also think there'll be nothing that can compare it to sort of the human, you know, the human kind of uniqueness. There'll be nothing that can compare to that, in my opinion. But AI being able to write poems could be coded to write a very good one for, say, a company or something like that, which might put some people out of jobs. Same thing with AI learning to edit. You know, people who edit for companies for advertisements could get put out of jobs too, because, you know, there could be an AI that specifically learns how to edit that company's types of advertisements, that specific style. An AI could learn that in the future and put editors of, say, advertisements out of jobs, and then editors could maybe only really be a job for very specific and very kind of products that are one-offs, products that an AI can't just learn, products that an AI can't just keep slapping out with different footage but keeping the same feel. You know, editors may lose a bulk of their, you know, of their market. I also didn't even touch on augmented reality, which would be something that it could be a contact lens in the future. I mean, right now it would be like a headset with like a see-through visor, but it could be like a contact lens in the future. And not only would that make you more connected, but it would also create more job opportunities for you yourself as someone in the videography industry, because, well, I mean, just think about it. It's such a competitive and such a busy industry that if you had that heads-up display the whole time while you're out and about, which granted is a little bit concerning, but if you had it on the whole time while you're out and about, just imagine you get your email straight away right in front of your face, or you get new job opportunities straight in front of your face, and then you can go right for it. Now that isn't directly a job opportunity, but it makes it easier to get jobs, because if you're really on your ball game with that augmented reality, if you have it every day and you're connected to, say, the right apps for the AR experience or whatever, and then you just always see the new gigs that you could land as a freelance videographer, well then AR is going to be one of the most useful tools ever for freelance videographers or freelance anything, really. So clearly I could have delved even deeper into this stuff, but I don't want to make a half an hour long video. Where tech's going is exciting. It's so exciting. Anyway, this has been Randy Andy, soon to be Cyborg, and I'll see you in the next video. Ah, so glad that's over.
Woo!